Okay, thanks everyone for joining. This is going to be a short talk about PHPStan. Hopefully some of you know it already. If not, then you will do by the end of it. First slide, me. So most of you here know me, but I'm Andy Hunt. I'm a developer, architect, DevOps, system engineer, as typically happens when you've been doing this stuff a long time. I co-own a company called Invisual, which is a software development consultancy. And fun fact, my first language was BASIC. So what are static analysis tools? You've probably heard about them. You may have used them before in other languages. But it's a collection of tools that will find problems with your code without actually running the code. So that's the key bit. It's before you run the code, it's going to tell you about potential errors. And some examples of tools that are doing static analysis are SAM, which is very similar to PHPStan. You've got PHP Code Sniffer, PHPCS, PHPMD, Mess Detector, and then you've got like the JavaScript, ESLint, JSHint, Python, PyLint, and Flake8. And then you've got online tools as well. So SonarQube / SonarSource, RIPS, they all do the same sort of thing. They're going to analyze your code and tell you where you might have gone wrong or how you could do things better. Obviously, there's tons more, and this talk's just going to focus on PHPStan. So to get going, there's two ways you can use it. It's via Docker is probably the preference, or if you're not using Docker, then you can compose a require it and just run vendor bin PHPStan. It does require PHP 7.1 or above to run it, but it will analyze code that's like PHP 5 code. So you just need to have 7.1 to run it, and you can run older code if you run it on older code if you need to. The best way to do that would be to probably use Docker if you're going to do that. So with the commands with Docker, if you're familiar with Docker, this is going to run a container. It's going to mount your current working directory into a folder in the container /app. It's going to pull the PHPStan image, the latest one. Might not want to use latest. You might want to fix that to like 0.12 to save it breaking when there's an update. And then you just write analyze and the folder or folders that you want to analyze, and then tell it a level. All of this stuff can be configured in a configuration file. So the standard configuration file is phpstan.neon, but it can also be .neon.dist. And in there, you can set your default. So you can say, I always want to run at level 8 or 4. I always want to analyze source and a test folder. You can also do things like excluding directories. So where we do that, for instance, might be, you might want to say, run everything in source, but exclude source / migrations, because that's got all your doctrine migrations in it, and they're not very nicely formatted out of the box. You can also enable or disable some checks in the config file. You can set up a custom rule set, and you can ignore errors in the config file. As for the level, there's 9 levels at the minute, 0 to 8. And there's also a max level, which is always going to be the highest level at the time. So before there was level 8, level 7 was the max, and then level A come out, and that became the max. So you can run it as max, and then you don't have to worry about next time a new level comes out. You'll always get that highest level that you're running against your code. Now, when you've got a code base that you haven't run PHPStan before, you'll probably find the first time you run it, if you run it with, I don't know, level 5, probably any level, in fact, or at least, you know, the higher levels, you're going to find that it just dumps a ton of issues on your screen. And if it's a mature project, you obviously, you kind of want to draw a line in the sand and say, all right, you know, this is too much stuff to fix. Maybe we can look at fixing it over time. But for now, we're going to create a baseline. So all of these errors that you've noticed, we'll use the generate baseline command switch, and when you run it, it's going to generate PHPStan -baseline.neon, and that's going to include all of the errors that you've just sort of captured. And so that way, when you move forward, the next time you run it, it's not going to show you those errors. So next time you add a new class or something like that, that new class will get scanned, but any existing errors won't show up, and it'll be only the new errors. That's a way to kind of bring it on without having to fix everything. And that's probably what you'll end up doing, unless you're starting from scratch. With the levels, so 0 is the, what we say, the most lenient, and 8 is the most strict. As you go up the levels, they're cumulative. So, you know, if you're running level 4, you also get all of the checks from 0 to 3 included. We can talk about these quickly. If there's any questions, just, you know, pipe up or do the raise the hand Google thing and just jump in. With the basic checks on level 0, it'll do basic stuff, unknown classes, unknown functions, unknown method call, real kind of basic stuff that perhaps your IDE is probably doing already. Level 1, you're going to get possible undefined variables, unknown magic methods and properties. You know, generally it's kind of discouraged to use the magic methods. So level 2, unknown methods checked on all expressions. So in level 0, it will check for methods that are unknown within this scope, whereas level 2 will kind of expand that to all objects. So when you're using an object outside of the scope of this, it will check that as well. And then it will do the validating of the PHP docs. Level 3, return types, and then types, assignments, and properties. It's going to tell you when you're missing those. Level 4, basic dead code checking. So that's a good one. If it thinks, right, how do I, bear with me a sec.
It's not a question, Andy.
All right, go.
I just couldn't believe that level 1 was the magic methods, because where I'd been using Ruby, like everything in Ruby's magic. So I've possibly been Rubyizing my PHP.
Yeah, I think it's yeah, it just makes things a little bit harder to understand and harder to debug errors. And you know, when you're using magic methods and stuff, even your IDE can't pick up some of that stuff. So it makes it kind of it just obscures things, makes things harder to debug, and then you know, with that, you know, you can potentially introduce more bugs. So level 4, mentioned the code check-in. There's always forced instance of and other type checks. We'll skip along some of these. 5, checking of arguments, path to methods and functions. So making sure that what you're passing into a function matches what's expected from the function. Reporting type hints, missing type hints. In level 6, level 7, report partially wrong union types. So if you got yeah, so level 7 is more, and then level 8 is the the top level. So yeah, report calling methods on accessing properties on nullable types. So that's going to be when if you just called a function get me some class, and that returns the object or null, and then you go on to use that object to say object get ID, it's going to say you can't call get ID on, you know, class type this or null. So it kind of it's making you think about where you might end up with that null pointer exception. So you probably want to wrap it in a like if instance of, and then do your call to the method. So that's the levels. I think a good one, if you're starting off, I'd say run your code at level 8, see what it looks like. But level 8 is quite strict, and especially at the beginning, you might not want to get into level 8. So I would aim for level 6. But if you get, you know, even 4 or 5, you know, it's all good stuff if you can't get there or don't want to get there, because it does require a little bit of extra work to do it. So yeah, what we do is we have this set up as, you know, we can run it in dev anytime we want, but also in CI when we push on a merge request, pull request, the CI jobs will they'll do 2 runs. So they'll do a run at level 6, which has to pass, and then they'll do a run at level 8, which is a job that's allowed to fail, but will still let the pipeline complete. So that's kind of, you know, aspiring to be level 8, but we're going to accept level 6 as a minimum. Next, so there are extensions for PHPStan. So PHPStan itself offers PHP Unit, Doctrine, Symfony, Mockery, and a few others. And then there are lots of third-party extensions. And what they do is they, these big sort of common libraries, it just helps out with that. So an example of Mockery is that when you, and PHP Unit, when you create a mock, it's going to know that the mock is going to be either an instance of like PHP Unit mock object or an instance of the thing you're mocking. So it's clever enough to know when you're using it, how that mock object should work, if that makes sense. And then the same thing with Symfony or Doctrine or whatever. And, you know, as with like Code Sniffer and stuff like that, you can write your own extensions to create your own kind of rules, if that's something that's needed. And then you can install them with the extension installer, which is a composer script, which will just set up the config for you. So you composer require the extension installer and then the extension, and that will automatically set it up by putting the right config in your phpstan.neon. And if you're using Docker, the image that's based on is the official PHP CLI Alpine image. So if your code needs extensions that aren't included in that image, then just you know, create your own Docker file and, you know, extend the PHPStan image, you know, and then install your own extensions that you need, if you need it. Or if you've already got like a production image that you use, you could pull your production image, or, you know, pull from your production image, then install PHPStan and run it on that if you like. So as you get set up, you'll probably find there's errors that you might want to ignore. Generally, this should be discouraged because it's going to kind of, if you put in these ignore error stuff everywhere, then it's kind of defeating the point of using a static analyzer. So use them sparingly, but there are some scenarios where you might want to use it. So if you're trying to get a quick fix out, and there's a quick way to do it, and then there's a better way to do it that would require a refactor, but also more time, and you don't have that time, that's, depending on how you feel about it, that's potentially a good reason to put in one of these comments or to add it to your config file. You'd probably want to create yourself a ticket to go back and refactor that after, but that's your call. It could be that there's a bug in PHPStan, so it's all software at the end of the day. So it has happened in the past, and if there is, then there is absolutely nothing you could do about that error except ignore it until it's fixed in the PHPStan repo, and you're able to get that, to pull that latest. And then if you're using an extension or you've built an extension, the extension might not fully understand what you're trying to do or what you need to do. And in that case, it might be kind of throwing a false positive, or might be throwing an error that's not applicable in that specific situations. And in that case, you can put in PHP ignore line, or PHP ignore next line in the code, or add it to the config file. And if you add it to the config file, you can use regex in it, which is nice to say, if it's this method on whatever, ignore it. So that kind of covers most of the stuff I've got in the slides. There is one more important note, and PHPStan is not a replacement for writing tests. So don't think it's a way to get out of doing that. You need to write tests, and as Uncle Bob says there, no test, no beer. So don't stop writing tests. If you're not writing tests, start writing tests, but add PHPStan to your workflow as well. So that leaves us. I do want to show you some code and run PHPStan, but before we get to that, do you have any questions?
Cheers for that, Andy. Like, that was actually fantastic. Like, even if, like, just to confirm that I wasn't totally misusing the tool. So you mentioned sort of you've got the levels and you can set a baseline. If you were doing like an interview task, or a client onboarding task, and they wanted to know the kind of quality of your work, would you include PHPStan as part of the submission, so that you could say to them, look, I use these tools to check the quality automatically? Or would you squeak that for something that was already paying, or something that's past MVP?
I think it depends on the task and stuff. I would, if I had the time, if it was, build this example project and then send us the code, I would include it definitely, and I would be running it while I'm writing the code, because one, that's going to ensure that the best quality code gets delivered to them, but also shows that you know about things on the periphery of PHP. So yeah, I would include it. And if I didn't include it, I would say normally I'd set up CI jobs to run PHPStan, or I'd have it on commit hooks or whatever. I'd let them know, because it is a good tool, and it if you're used to coding at like a level 6 level, I think that's a good badge to have, if you know what I mean. That's yeah, I mean, it shows that you kind of care about it, and that you know how to do things properly. PHP, one thing I didn't mention actually in the slides was PHPStan, it does rely on dot blocks as well. So it will do all the normal like PHP 7 type check-ins, all that kind of stuff. But in in cases where you're returning an array, for instance, your function method will give an array return type. But what you want to do is do a dot block for that to say, actually, this return is this, like the key is an int, and the value is this type of object or a string or whatever it is. So I'm not sure if you're doing that already, but that also helps with your IDE. So your IDE will know that as well. So it's going to make developing easier, because when you get an array of things returned from a method, it already knows what those things are when you start iterating through them. You don't have to put a at var on top of your for each or whatever. Any other questions?
I had a question.
Okay.
I beat you to it, Andy. The baseline, the generate baseline thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously going to say, like, my code is at this state, so any new code. How do you then go back and, like, is there a way to go back and say, like, I now want to start fixing the baseline?
Yeah. So what the baseline file looks like is a bunch of these type of things. So it will say this file with this on this line, this explicit error string, that's what I'm gonna ignore. So you can open your baseline and you're able to see where all your errors are, and then you can start ticking them off that way. Or what you could do is imagine you've got a bunch of stuff in your baseline, and you're running all new stuff on level 6. What you could do is, if you wanted to start tackling things, you could delete the baseline file and then run PHPStan on level 0, and that might give you, a handful of things, and you can fix all of them. And then you can reinstate you could redo your baseline, which would exclude those ones, and then next time you come around, you could do it the level 1 checks and then try and fix all of those ones. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I'm just thinking because this seems pretty good, and I mean, depending on what Andy says, I would potentially look at using this at work. But yeah, we have as you called it, a mature system.
Our system is quite mature. Yeah.
Yeah, I would be concerned on we would I think we would 100% need to do the baseline. But then we would also want to go back and improve it. So, but yeah, that totally makes sense though on how you would do that.
Yeah. Are you using PHP 7 at IFP?
Yeah, 7.4, 7.3 for most things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not quite ready to jump to PHP 8 yet.
No, neither. But yeah, it's not hard to bring in. The baseline makes it really easy. And yeah, I think see how you go. Try it out. It won't take long to set up. And you can always try it at level 8. Back off until you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Have you got a baseline file that you'd be comfortable sharing? just curious to see what it's like.
Possibly. Let's. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we'll go to the demo.
I was going to ask, like, how long have you been using PHPStan?
I don't know. It's got to be. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even sure how long it's been out, but I think probably 2 years. But it might be that it's definitely more than a year.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah.
I was just wondering if you're relatively new to it, or if you've been using it for a while. But yeah, cool.
No, I've been using it a while, and it is good. Like
yeah, so you feel that it definitely provides value.
Without a doubt, yeah. I wouldn't have to start a new project and not have it. has it caught any neat bugs? Yeah, I mean, I mean, I can't think of any specific examples, but the kind of things it catches, sometimes you'll look at it and you'll go, oh, yeah, you know what, I didn't realize that. For instance, like it will say, it might say, online thingy, online whatever, this if statement always returns true or something. It's always true. And then when you know, and that might not be clear from looking at the code until you sort of think about it and how you've got to that if statement and all the different variables. And then you go, oh yeah. So yeah, it does catch stuff, and it's, you know, things like unused variables, all that kind of stuff, all that goodness, and the whole this object might be null thing, I think, is kind of an underrated thing, because lots of times it's okay to not think about that, but then there's always the time that it is a problem. And so I would rather have PHPStan tell me that and me do a, if it's an instance of this, or if it's not null, and then do my check, and then, you know, write a case for what if it is null. So yeah, I think it's a worthwhile tool bringing in. And yeah, as I said, our project that we're paying for ourselves, you know, we brought it in on that, and yeah, I wouldn't do a project without it or some. So let's have a look at some code. Let me see. How am I going to do this? Let's put that over there. Can you see PHPStan?
Yep.
Indeed.
Okay, so that's quite small. Let's see, how do I make it bigger? Does anyone know?
I think it's Command plus.
But you can go appearance and then where you were before, appearance and then presentation mode.
I should have tried this out, shouldn't I? Okay.
Presentation mode is pretty good.
Yeah. So this is our config file. So as I mentioned, we're going to exclude migrations, and we're excluding some certain files that are problematic, but we're not too worried about. I can't even remember what this does, but it was annoying, so we turned it off. And it was over the top in our opinion. It was yeah. Now I'm out of that presentation mode. I don't know how to get around, so bear with me a second. Where's the,
It is good that you can customize it for your project as well, because like that's one of the things that some of the early linting tools put people off with. They were just kind of the author's opinions, but it's great to see that it's got this, you know, this ability to customize. It looks like YAML.
It is. It's actually neon. I don't know the difference between neon and YAML, but it's very YAML-like.
Yeah.
So let me show you. That's that. Let me show you how we run it. So you probably can't see that, but come on. You. I didn't.
It's fine. I think the size isn't horrific. It's a little bit small for my old eyes, but
yeah. In presentation mode, you can get the project bar up on the left if you want.
Okay. Can you get the other bar up?
What, the terminal?
Sorry. Yeah, terminal.
Maybe not. Yeah, Alt F12 on Linux. I'm guessing Command F12. What shortcut is it?
Alt should be the same, Andy. So it's
right.
Control and Command that are interchangeable.
There we go. Right.
Yeah.
So what I've done here is use Docker to mount the app in to analyze just the source folder on level 6. Now, this branch I'm on is something someone else started, and I took over to add a bit too, and it's all kind of work in progress stuff. So the reason there's loads of errors at level 6 is because it hasn't been merged yet, because it wouldn't be allowed to be merged because of our CI job. So this will give you some examples of what kind of stuff it's going to be throwing up. It's also, we might just ignore this whole file as well, because it's an import that is only really going to be run once it's finished. So yeah, we might not fix some of these issues. So what we got array does not accept string, so does not accept key string, so that's helpful. We could have a look at that maybe.
It's because it says int, so
Line. Yeah. Type. Yeah, so somewhere we've told PHPStan that this is the array type, so it's an int key with a version type. But then when you look at the PHP doc flights, we're passing in a string, and then that string ends up here as the key. So that's telling us something useful. May or may not be important in this case. What we got? Method, abstract content info, get genre, has a parameter with name, and there's no type int specified. So on a new project, there's not many reasons not to have a type int specified. If we have a look at that. So yeah, and it might be, you might want to mixed in here. This might be mixed, you might want to accept an array or string or something, but then you'd probably want to put mixed up here, and then PHPStan wouldn't moan about that because it can't type in. But because you've left it without, and you can see that it's these lines are not attributed to me, because I'm the one in the company that bugs everyone else about PHPStan.
Yeah, we can all change our name on Git.
Yeah. So yeah, PHP dot param is invalid name. Oh, that's the same thing. Front one, expect string. So this is one where we should probably bring in the doctrine extension. So it's saying, yeah, it's talking about what's being passed into doctrine, and I'm sure that would be fixed if we had the doctrine extension installed. Another one for array typing. It doesn't accept. So video content is actually a subclass of content. So in fact, I think this is an abstract class. We should have named the abstract class there, perhaps. Version type as well. Let's see if there's anything more interesting.
we're getting this coder into trouble by asking you to look at this, isn't we? You're looking through it going, hey, why are you binding to explicit classes?
This is still work in progress, so I'll let it off. So yeah, call to an undefined method.
Undefined method.
Add genres. So let's have a look. Where is that? That's that is line. It's an line. I'm the wrong file. This bit of code, is it? Oh, yeah.
Is that the right file? Didn't that say abstract something? Abstract content importer and then abstract core. That's not the same file.
No.
It's taking me to a usage of it rather than the actual class.
179.
Import and on-core content.
Abstract. No. Oh, that's what's happened.
You're in the wrong.
Yeah, copy. 179.
Here we go.
So, what is it? Statement. So that's a PDO, by the looks of it. I know. Oh no, it's not. This. Yeah.
Oh, look whose name's to the right of
that. Hold up a second.
Shocking.
I didn't do this.
Oh yeah. It's all coming
I
out
definitely
now.
didn't do this file.
You did this a year ago.
No, I'm not taking.
This is the 5th of the 5th, 2020.
Yeah. Hold up a second. No. Yeah, this is something different. I didn't do this stuff. I'm not taking a rap for that. Yeah, undefined variables. You can have a quick look at that. What item? 87. So notes. Why is my IDE not showing that as grey? But yeah, that doesn't exist there. Where we go? We've got so yeah, strict comparison tells you when you should use triple equals and stuff like that. You know, tries to encourage that. And it's going to say this is a one where it's going to say always evaluating to force. So you might not realize that straight away. But yeah, let's have a quick look at that actually. In max. Don't really understand that. But probably need to look at what that's doing. But I trust PHPStan to know that that's a problem. So that's found 20 errors in that. So if we just quickly see how many it would find in level 8. It's really quick to run as well. It has a cache that I think it'll invalidate every like 7 days. So after 7 days, it'll always re-look at everything. So there's obviously 56 errors. And yeah, offset does not exist. That weren't there before. It's a AWS result or null. So this is one of those things I was talking about.
Have you found the number of errors that you kind of quote unquote produce when making new code has dropped over time? Like basically, have you found that you're now naturally writing PHPStan compliant code? The more
yeah,
using it.
Yeah. There's some stuff that that does come up. Like I had one the other day where it was still a kind of on the project I'm working on in a minute. It's running on a commit hook, which I don't do in this project, but that was obviously having it run more often while I was still in the progress of writing stuff, and that did actually throw up an error where you know, it would always be false. So there are occasions, you know, where it's telling me stuff, but I'm used to now, you know, put in all my type hints and stuff, and we run on a high level that wants you to put your type hints in. So, and I'm used to doing that now, but there is occasions where I forget to put a return type or something like that. It normally is return types, and that kind of stuff will come up. But I don't begrudge going back and doing that. Do you know what I mean? That's something that I missed on purpose. So, and then yeah, if we do it level 5. What was that, Lewis? The things disappeared.
So do you have like any additional tooling that sits around it for? I mean, I know that doc blocks are actually the reason it wouldn't give me level 6 is because I sporadically use them. So like if I'm creating a type and it's like an array type, so it's just a container for iterator access and to make sure that an array is typed. I can be a little bit lazy, and although I've got tools to generate getters and setters that come with doc blocks, I have to manually write them for other things, and when I have to manually write them, I do get a little bit on the lazy side. Is there any good tooling that kind of comes along with this or floats around in this space that can help to at least put like a skeleton in there?
Not
or
really.
Just don't be lazy.
Well, no. The thing I would say is that I don't use doc blocks unless I have to. So
yeah.
Let me find an example. Should have one in here. This is so here's an example. Let's move that out of the way. So here we're adding in person because that's helpful to know for our other stuff. But if you look at this one, for instance, we're not putting in var float or whatever. We only have doc blocks when they're absolutely necessary. So this one, because there's extra information that you need to know about this array, we're saying it's an array of int and person. Whereas these ones that it's returning self, or if it's returning another object or a normal type, all of that stuff is already inferred by the type hints. So there's not a lot of time that we use the doc blocks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's brilliant because that looks pragmatic. I think I just need to take the time to make the exception ones like the return array in person. I need to take the time to actually make sure I'm doing that as well. So I literally only get them around getters and set any generated code because it puts them there for me. Or if there's, I tend to try if something needs a comment and it's using PHP features, like the type hinting, I try to think, could I name it something better rather than write a long comment about it? But it's like anything. I'll just have to build that muscle of taking the time to.
Yeah, but if you're starting off, you can disable this, so PHPStan doesn't complain about this, about not knowing what more info about the array. So you can either not have to worry about it or ease yourself into PHPStan. But yeah, it has the benefits, obviously, that the IDE will also read this and know when you're looping through it somewhere else in the code that it's going to person. You don't have to put an app bar to get your code completion for your methods and all that kind of stuff. And often, I don't like unnecessary comments. So if there was a comment on here that had a return type, had your app return and it had your app params and stuff like that, I'd probably delete it. If it's not adding in it, I'd get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I take it you don't use PHPCS with this, or you've modified your rules then, because the only reason I have so many doc blocks as is is for PHPCS, just so it shuts up. Like,
we use Code Sniffer with this.
all right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, we do. It depends, doesn't it? So if you got that rule switched on to say that you've got to have all your doc blocks, then obviously it's going to nag you about that. But my opinion is there's no point in having unnecessary doc blocks. So we've got that switched off.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I hate, like, I hate all comments. The only doc blocks I have are the ones for class level, so that it's good. Laravel uses a lot of magic stuff, all the magic methods and stuff. So
yeah, like when you pull something out of a container, it says that it's a person class, but the IDE doesn't understand that when you call app with person class, you've got a person.
So yeah, I try and use them sparingly, and it's exactly what you said as well, Lewis. Where it's like, if I find myself wanting to write a comment about something, it's a code smell of like, well, hang on a sec, maybe I should refactor this code so that I don't need a comment and that the code is just readable.
Yeah.
So it's very, very, very rarely do I write like actual comments. Try and always refactor the code where I can.
So this is another project that I think has got a baseline file in it. I'm proving it on there. Yeah. The guy must have gone through and fixed it all. Hold up, am I in the right project? Yeah. I swear there was a baseline file. Maybe not. The last thing I could probably show you, I'll get through this quick. It's probably not even necessary. So pipelines. Does anyone use Git Lab? It's great.
I have used it in the past, but we.
So yeah, this is our pipeline, and these are the two jobs. So as you'll see, the level 6 PHPStan job will has to pass, but the level 8 is allowed to fail. See, it's got 40 errors on there.
You're queuing up for the next talks now. I wanna walk through GitLab's pipelines.
I love GitLab. It's great.
That does look pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and you can self-host it as well, which that always appeals, doesn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, the pipeline is quite cool. That's that's small compared to some of the places I've worked though. But this app itself isn't that big. But
what does it run the pipeline from? Is it like do you supply like a .GitLab folder with some YAML in it for workflows? That's what GitHub Actions is calling them, workflows.
So yes, this .gitlab.ci.yaml. That's your main file that it's going to look for, and it's really basic stuff. In this case, we've split the jobs out into includes. It's a bit more involved. So all this is doing is saying, this is the repository URL we're using for our Docker images. These are the various stages which you've just seen, in a line, and this will run before each script that runs. So it's going to copy in the test end, and then if we have a look at the included ones, GitLab CI, we do. I'll show you quickly. So each top level thing is a job. So this is the composer install job. The test composer lock. So this is just going to say, is your lock file up to date with your composer.json, and then it will fail if not. That's a good check to have. This composer install does a development one, and then it does a prod one, and it will create artifacts. It will cache the vendor folder so that when we go to the next jobs, and all the other jobs that run, like the unit tests and the integration tests, those jobs that need to do a composer install, it's already got the cached vendor folder. It will like pass that forward to save on time. And yeah, normal stuff like this is the stage it's running at. It tags is a way to tell it where to run, on what runner to run. So it's going to run on a Docker runner. This is the image, which is running off of our image that's hosted on Git Lab. The cache, as we mentioned, the artifacts, they'll expire and things. And then the script is just basically, a normal script, but on YAML. Yeah. This is sort of put straight into Bash. I'm sure it's probably, I haven't seen Git Lab actions, but I'm sure it's probably similar. And then testing is the same. So PHPStan ones. I'm taking you through this quickly so I don't have to do a talk on it.
Well, Andy, you've more than enough earned plenty of beers from each of us. Like, this has been a really in-depth talk, so thanks.
So the composer install is a dependency of this job, so that's how you set the stages, and that if that one fails, this job won't go on, and it requires some artifacts from it. A linting job. So here we're using PHPCS. Yeah, lint our YAML files, and then the release and build is building the images, and then the release step is building the prod image and then pushing them to AWS repository, because it obviously uses Kubernetes hosted on AWS with Helm and all that good stuff. Yeah, so I think that's wrapped up probably everything I was going to say. Does anyone have any more questions?
No.
Let's stop this recording.
Yay.